And with that, we go straight to hopefully very, very exciting fireside chat that I've been looking forward very, very much to. So I have here with me a fantastically successful entrepreneur from the Romanian diaspora. I have Emi Gal, whom I'll give a chance to introduce himself in a second. But I just wanted to say that he has been through a fantastic journey, what I've been learning so far, from funding Brainian to battling cancer with AI. So I think we have a lot of really interesting topics to cover in this 20 minutes. And with that, I want to give a very quick chance to say hi and give Emi a chance to introduce himself.
Hey, Philip. It's great to be here. Great to see you and great to be at Pennsylvania. As Philip mentioned, I'm Romanian. I'm originally from Bucharest, which we all know is the best city in Romania. Vlad might not agree with that. And a bit of background on myself. I started a company while I was in college in Bucharest. It's a software company called Brainian that ended up building one of the leading video ad servers in Europe. That company led me to London. I spent 7 years in London in the UK building Brainian, and then it was acquired by Teads, which is a large ad tech group in the US, and then I ended up in New York with the Teads acquisition. And then I started Ezra, which is focused on detecting cancer early for everyone in the world. I'm happy to dive into a little bit how I got to focus on that and about Ezra.
So what I really loved is what I always like asking founders is what problem they like to solve. And when you answered why did you build Brainian? It said you are solving the problem that you didn't have any money at that time. So
Basically.
I'd love to start at that point. What got you to start Brainian? And then we can explore more on Ezra.
Great. So yeah, I mean, I grew up in working class family in Bucharest. My parents were factory workers, which was common for a lot of people my age in the 90s. So I didn't have any money. And I went to college to study computer science and applied mathematics and didn't have any money. So decided to start coding, build websites for others. Turned out that I was doing a good job. So I started hiring a bunch of people from university, colleagues of mine, and we built this outsourcing software shop called Brainian that was just making us some cash in order to be able to live in Bucharest. And that was the problem that I was trying to solve for myself, to be honest, with Brainian. And then had this ambition to launch our own products. And that's why we launched the video ad server in, I believe, 2009.
Well, Bucharest is a fun city, but it's also a very expensive city.
It is.
I can understand why you had a good time there if you early on made good money with outsourcing, because there was definitely the golden years of outsourcing.
It was the golden years of outsourcing in Romania between 2006 and maybe 2012, 15, something like that.
Yes, that was about the time when I first came to Romania, and I've seen a lot of people doing that very, very successfully.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to ask you is obviously your latest project is a passion project that you're really trying to solve an important problem for humanity. So how is your experience different from founding Brainian versus founding Ezra right now?
Yeah, so Brainian, again, the problem that I was trying to solve was just having some cash, and then we kind of launched a number of projects. One of these projects was Brain TV, which was an online TV channel that didn't work out, but we built a video ad server to deliver ads for this TV channel. And when we failed, we were like, okay, let's basically license this video ad server to others. And that turned out to be a good idea. So never really chose to go into advertising technology, kind of fell into it. With Ezra, it's very different. The goal and the background with Ezra is that I'm personally at high risk for cancer, for melanoma. I have a couple of hundred moles on my body. That puts me in the highest risk bracket for skin cancer. And so from a very young age, I've had to get screened, have moles removed, have biopsies. I've been aware of the importance of screening much more so than most young people. And so because of that experience, I started volunteering for a nonprofit in Romania who build hospices that care for cancer patients. They're called Hospices of Hope. And in being involved with them, I realized that the main reason why people end up in a hospice, the main reason why people die because of cancer, is because they find cancer late. And the main reason people find cancer late is because there's no way to screen for cancer everywhere in the body that's fast, accurate, and affordable. And when I realized that, I decided that I'm going to spend the rest of my career trying to solve that problem. And that was the seed idea for Ezra, or the problem that I set out to build. And then I actually spent about almost 2 years doing research to figure out how we're going to solve that problem, and then started Ezra. So it's kind of was a long journey from deciding to focus on this space to actually launching a company in the space.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating how starting Brainian gave you the financial freedom to work on your true passion project.
Yes.
I think one lesson I always learn from talking to founders is that basically the most important thing is to get started. And then like you never know where you end up 10 years later, right? Like, I mean, I bet when you were like in college to get some money, you wouldn't have had the grand master plan that you'll end up with solving cancer one day.
Oh yeah, I would have never thought when I was 19, when I started Brainian, that I would end up trying to detect cancer early for everyone.
Yeah. So what I want to go a little bit into, and you touched a bit on that, is the way that you apply like AI and machine learning at Ezra is fascinating, right? Like how you like, and I'd love to before I start like to give my amateur understanding, I'd love for you to explain because it sounds really like the perfect fit for various machine learning technologies.
Yeah, so when in those 18 months when I was doing research that to figure out how you could go about screening for cancer everywhere in the body, actually on my honeymoon, this is in late 2016, was reading a paper that was concluding that MRI, like as a medical imaging modality, is the best way to image the body because it doesn't expose you to radiation, it has very high sensitivity, it has reasonable specificity, and it can find things as little as a few millimeters. However, the problem with MRI is that it's expensive. It's expensive both to get a scan and expensive to analyze the scan. And a full body MRI before Ezra used to cost $10,000 to $15,000. What we've done is we've built technology, machine learning, computer vision models to decrease the scanning time, decrease the interpretation time, in order to make full body MRI scans affordable. And our current full body scan costs just under $2,000. So we've been able to make it much more affordable than it used to be. And over the next few years, we actually plan to make full body scans as affordable as $500.
Oh, that's really awesome. No, I've seen a lot of the startups like Human Longevity and a few others that are like basically doing a full health check. And for some of them, it's like north of $10,000 to get like a full checkup, not only for cancer.
Yeah.
So I do think if you get it sub $1,000, then you enable a lot more people doing that. And I mean, I think what you've said, right? Like the early detection is the best way to battle it.
Absolutely.
So no doubt. I think in terms of the besides like building and leveraging the MRI, the other thing that I was really fascinated with is when I ask you saying like how good is the AI, how good are the computer vision algorithms, and are you already at the superhuman performance level? And what I got like from your answer back then was like saying, yeah, well, we're already superhuman, but as long as we can't prove it, we can't use that technology because there's no way to get medical clearance. Yeah. So I'd love to have you like elaborate a bit on how are we in like the analyzing MRI images and so on, and what do you see happening?
The technology is really, really good. Like our first AI at Ezra was built for helping radiologists when they analyze MRI images of the prostate. And we got really, really good results in terms of measuring prostate volume, measuring lesions within the prostate and their size, and just assisting radiologists when they interpret MRI images. From a regulatory standpoint, though, it is really hard to go to the FDA or to the European Commission and say, hey, I'm going to have an AI analyze images and then deliver a report to a member. It's very hard to get something like that approved. And so I think in the foreseeable future, instead of thinking about, oh, AI is replacing radiologists, we're going to think about radiologists powered by AI replacing radiologists. And I think we can actually turn radiologists into super radiologists by building machine learning models. And that's certainly the approach we're taking on at Ezra.
I wonder if that, because I was like pondering this, right? Like as a user of a product, right? Like I wonder why I shouldn't have the ability to see the output of the AI, right? Like I mean, I get it that an AI shouldn't automatically make a decision to like operate me or something like that, but I'm still like very surprised that basically like the government says like I can't have the MRI that I own, that I take of my body, analyzed by any AI technology that says like, hey, you might have cancer. Then I'm at the power to decide, do I trust this? Do I take this to a radiologist? So
Yeah.
do you think there's a future available where users, patients will have more choice, because it's not like invasive, right? Like it's not like I'm taking a pill and immediately if it's like non-approved then it kills me. It is basically about access to information.
Yeah, so the challenge is if the AI tells you, hey, Philip, you might have cancer, and then you go and do a follow-up scan, you do a biopsy, and it turns out that it wasn't cancer. The regulatory bodies say, well, that's overdiagnosis. It's kind of like a human should have assessed that. And if the human also decided that it is potential cancer and the person should do a biopsy and so on, it is safer for the human. That's kind of the reason why we're not seeing reports just generated by AIs in radiology. I do think there's a future when that might happen, because if you could build a large enough data set where you can show that an AI said there's potential cancer and the person did follow-up scan, biopsy, and it was indeed cancer. And if the data set is large enough and convincing enough, you could actually persuade the regulatory bodies that it's something that could be deployed. That said, we're probably many years away from that being reality, just because regulatory bodies are not known for their speed of adoption of new technologies.
Do you see there's a chance for countries competing on that, right? Like for example, in dental care, in Germany, a very common thing is you go to Eastern Europe because you can get it done at a much lower cost. So do you think that in the future, people go to a more permissive country, like, I don't know, that could be like Dubai or Hong Kong, that allow more use of AI, and then people get access to potentially more advanced care? Do you see some possible future like that happening with technologies that you're developing, or how do you see that playing out?
For sure. And actually, not even just AI, but the current Ezra full body cancer screening, we actually have people flying in from Europe. We have people flying in from different states in the US to New York or San Francisco, LA, where we have partner facilities to get Ezra full body scans. And it's quite exciting to see, because we've even had someone from Germany flying in recently to get an Ezra full body scan.
That is pretty amazing. I mean, that is like truly next level important product when like somebody flies across the ocean to test your product.
Yes, we'd like them not to have to fly, so we plan to open everywhere. But for now, yeah, we're seeing a lot of our members coming in from other states or other countries.
Yeah, we're waiting for your first scanning machine in Cluj or in Bucharest. Yeah, your comment has, by the way, I've just looked into the Hop and Feed, has definitely led to like very passionate responses about Bucharest versus Cluj. But I suggest we go and explore other topics.
Good Speaking about start talking about football, people might have had even more strong reactions in Romania.
Yes, please spare me the football discussions. I don't want to have people with pitchforks showing up in my apartment.
I know, exactly. Yeah.
No, but speaking about Romania, I think one thing that we've also chatted about is that you have a truly global team, and you're also extending your team in Romania. Is that something you want to share a bit about? Like, kind of, what do you look for an ideal member of your team right now? What are you looking for?
Yeah. So we initially at Ezra, we were headquartered in New York City, and then we had an engineering team in Toronto, Canada, because that's where my co-founder Diego is, and we kind of built a team of PhDs and AI scientists around him. And I'm a big fan of kind of in-person work and like working with engineers closely and being in the same room with them. And then the pandemic hit, and we couldn't meet in person, obviously. And I had an interesting realization about 6 months into the pandemic, which was that we were as productive, if not more productive, remotely than we were in person. So we did a survey internally with the Ezra team, and like 90% of the team said, we like remote, we don't want to go back. Maybe a hybrid model, but never going back into the office. And so we decided to become a remote friendly company. And so we're now hiring everywhere. And we have folks in Romania now, London, all over the US. And we are significantly expanding our engineering team. And so we are looking for amazing engineers to hire in Romania. They don't have to be in Bucharest. You know? It's like amazing engineers in Cluj as well. So actually, one of our engineers is in Cluj. So looking for engineers, machine learning and otherwise, anywhere in Romania.
That's a good save. Although I'm not sure if still anybody in Cluj after your comments is still joining that, but I'm sure you can hit up Amy and like chat with him about that. So I wanted to spend a few more minutes chatting on another topic that you're also very passionate about, which is the future of anti-aging technology in general. So can you elaborate both about the present, what you see about anti-aging technology, and how do you see the future in the next 10, 15 years in that space developing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So part of the motivation behind Ezra is that I believe that in order to stay healthy for as long as possible as a human, you need to find disease early. And the kind of limiting factor in disease in healthcare is cancer. Like you can miss every other disease. If you catch cancer, you're going to survive. You can catch every other disease. If you miss cancer, things are not going to look great. And so part of why we started with the Ezra Full Body focused on cancer is because it's the limiting factor in health. That said, I do believe that over the next 10, 15, 20 years, we're going to see a lot of innovations in healthcare that are going to help increase healthy lifespan. And there are kind of three buckets that I categorize things in. There's the short-term stuff, which is things that we all know that a lot of people should do a lot more of. So like it's weightlifting, exercise, eating mostly veggies, fasting. Those are all things that we know are going to help increase healthy lifespan, but like we don't do it enough. The second thing is kind of medium term is senolytic drugs that can remove senescent cells from the body. So like metformin is a great example of this. It's been shown to increase healthy lifespan in mice by 30%. There are some human trials going on, and it's not the only drug that is showing great promise in the space. There are a number of single molecule drugs that are showing really, really promising results. And I think this will happen within the next 5 to 10 years. We're going to have these drugs that are going to be able to we'll be able to take them and extend life by probably 5 to 10 years. And then there's the kind of long-term stuff, things that I don't think will have at scale in the next 15 to 20 years, maybe 25 years. And that's the ability to 3D print tissues and organs. So if you have kidney failure, you can just 3D print a kidney using your cells that you can then transplant and have the person continue living. That's a bit, there's some companies working in the space, and they're showing great promise on very simple tissue. So there's a long way to go until like you can print an actual organ or grow an organ. But I do believe it's going to happen over the next 2 decades or so. And so if we stay healthy over the next 20, 30 years, then we will be in a position in our 60s, 70s, et cetera, when we will be able to change organs from these 3D printing organ companies. And those are kind of my 3 categories of how I'm thinking about longevity long term.
I think you're very lucky that you're much younger than Ray Kurzweil. So you,
Yes.
if your prognosis is right, you might live long enough to live forever, which was the famous sentence that he said. But
Yes.
the way that he looks, I'm not quite sure if he'll get there. And
I'm
he
not
doesn't
sure.
look like
Plus,
following your short-term advice either.
no, plus he, I believe, has diabetes, and so that will also kind of shorten some of his lifespan by default.
So can we? So as one last question, can we expect you, if you succeed in solving cancer or making a significant contribution in solving that, can we expect your next company will be in the longevity space?
Well, Philip, there's no next company. Ezra is it for me, and I plan to spend the rest of my career working on Ezra. Every year, 10 million people detect cancer late. And so our mission at Ezra is to help those 10 million people find cancer early, which probably means we need to screen 100 million people a year because we find potential cancer in about 10% of our members. And so that's going to take 2 decades, 3 decades probably. And I'm committed to Ezra long term.
I love it. Such wonderful words and a true fantastic lifetime dedication to solve an important cause of humanity.
I do invest in longevity startups and healthcare startups. So that's kind of how I keep an eye on what's going on. So if anyone's working on anything interesting in that space, would love to hear from them.
Sounds wonderful. Amy, thank you so much joining us today from New York. Hopefully next year we can host you in person in Cluj to show you how wonderful the city is.
Not
And we'll see about that. Thank
uh,
you so much, Amy.
Awesome. Have a great one. Take care.